What's up guys, Tamarakshan here. Samsung has plenty of options when it comes to budget phones, and one of the most recently launched one is the Galaxy F62. Well, this phone is a bit more different from the other budget options from Samsung because this guy actually has a couple of year old Samsung flagship processor, and that's the main highlight of this phone. But in reality, spec sheet hype is not what matters, but instead it should perform well in real world usage, and that too a long-term perspective is the best way to find out how well the spec sheet is true. And here as you can see, the Galaxy F62 specifications are fairly good, and in that the core standout thing is the processor, which is the Exynos 9825. It's the same processor that's powering the Galaxy Note 10 series, and here the RAM available is also backing it pretty well. And here this choice from Samsung is to an extent great. Now by opting for this, well, the phone doesn't get 5G support, but to be frank, right now 5G is still not a mainstream thing, especially in India. So to me, this decision seems to be totally fine because from a performance point of view, we are getting a pretty solid experience. And that too, the performance seems to be holding fine based on a long-term usage scenario. And that's actually a great thing because usually Samsung phones does slow down over time. And here this performance thing is well reflected while doing normal tasks as well as while doing intense tasks too. And while talking about intense stuff, the gaming performance is a key thing to highlight. Graphic intense games works perfectly fine with bare minimum frame drops, and also the eating thing, it does happen after like 15 minutes of continuous gaming, but then it's not very intense, and also the phone does cool down at a quicker pace. Well, all these are good, but at times even while doing normal tasks, you might notice a slight hiccup, but again that's not a common thing. And overall, I like the performance and user experience from the Galaxy F62. It's not going to blow your mind because here we are not getting a flagship level experience that we get from a 2021 flagship phone, but instead based on the pricing categorization, what we are getting is great performance. RAM management could have been better because it seemed to be a bit aggressive, and that can be because the variant I am using is the 6GB RAM variant. But with the storage, 120GB storage is more than sufficient, but even then if you want more, a dedicated SD card slot is available. And here another advantage thing to highlight is the software support that Samsung has promised, which is 4 years of security updates, so it's like guaranteeing that the phone will be supported for 4 years. So based on all this, on the performance and user experience, which is the hyped thing about the Galaxy F62, well, the phone does deliver in a neat manner, and hence the omission of 5G is to an extent covered. Now these are all based on the pricing of the phone, and here is the present pricing of the F62 in India, and here as you can see, the base variant's pricing is approximately 24,000 Indian rupees. And this pricing segment is actually a very competitive one because there are plenty of good options in this segment, and actually Samsung itself sells a very attractive phone in this budget, which is the Galaxy A52. And here with the Galaxy F62, well, the performance side is well covered, and about the design, it's a very unique style which is not the usual thing from Samsung. The phone has a very shiny look, and that's because of the laser gradient design style that Samsung has opted for in the plastic casing. The color I have is the laser green one, and here the approach is a shiny glossy surface. The lower portion of the back has this chromy mirror style, and then it blends into the color of the phone. It's different, but I'm not a fan of it. And here with the design, the only portion I liked is the camera section. This body integrated camera style looks clean. But other than that, there are issues like this glossy back plastic is a fingerprint magnet, and it also scratches easily. And then about the dimension of the phone, well, other than the width, everything else is on the huge side. Thickness is 9.5 mm and the weight is a whopping 218 grams, which makes the phone a chunky one. But here the good part is that everything is well put together, and also the phone is not a slippery one too, which is a good thing because if you are not worried about scratches and smudges, you can avoid using a case with the phone. And also there wasn't any creaks or flexing issue, even though the phone is completely made of plastic, and all the buttons, they do work well. Volume button and the power button both does provide good feedback, and here the power button actually houses the fingerprint scanner. And this scanner is a very welcome one over the in-display fingerprint scanner used by Samsung because the speed of unlock is good, and about the accuracy, it's almost every time accurate in unlocking. And about the ports available, well, Samsung does offer a headphone jack which outputs good audio, and you also get a USB-C charging port. Well, that's all about the design and build quality, and here the build quality is done well, but about the design, well, I'm not much into it. It's not only because of the glossy back plastic, but it's also because of the phone being very thick and heavy. Now there is a good side to this thickness and the weight thing, and that's the battery side. This phone has a huge 7000 mAh battery, and that might be the reason for the heft, but then since this battery is massive, the screen on time I was getting was in the 8-hour plus range. That's a great number, and here if you're even a moderate user, you can push the battery back up to almost 2 days. But then when the battery is huge, you really need a big charger if you want to top it quickly. And here the charger included in box is a 25 watt charger, But then with that charger and the included USB-C to USB-C cable, the time it takes to fully charge the phone from 0% is more than 2 hours. Now, if in case you're doubtful whether the phone heats up a lot while charging, well, there wasn't such kind of an issue. And also one more thing to notice that, even though the phone doesn't have support for wireless charging, you can use the phone as a power bank because the phone does support reverse cable charging. So from the battery side, things are well done, and that's almost the same when it comes to the display. You're not getting any fancy higher refresh rate stuff, but the rest is just perfect for the price. This is a big 6.7-inch Super AMOLED Plus Samsung display which has a resolution of 2400 by 1080, and this display in short can be described as a well-calibrated, slim-bezeled, perfect colored one which has neat viewing angles, and also it does get sufficiently bright. Peak brightness level this display can reach is 420 nits, and hence outdoor usability is not an issue. And here from this display, there wasn't any tinting effect. Well, these are all expected things from a good quality Samsung panel, and that's what you're getting with the Galaxy F62. So the display is a great one for viewing contents and also browsing the web. But here since the refresh rate is at 60Hz, well, in comparison to the Galaxy A52, the A52 does have the upper hand in that regard. Now if you are a person who is not accustomed to a higher refresh rate panel, you will not notice that as a missing thing in the Galaxy F62 because the casual scrolling and swiping, they all work well in a smooth manner. But then if Samsung would have had a 90Hz refresh rate, well then things would have been much more competitive. Now more than this, what I really wished this phone had is a dual speaker setup. I feel that in 2021, if phone's pricing is above the 20,000 Indian rupees mark, there is no excuse with the audio. If Samsung would have made the earpiece a speaker too, well then media consumption with this phone would have been perfect, but here you're not getting such kind of a thing, and this single speaker unit is not that good too. Audio output in terms of quality and loudness is just average, and hence if you plan on watching video in a noisy environment, you better carry a headphone with you. So till now, things are good with the main flaw being the audio output, and then from the design side, Samsung could have done better. But then we still have a key deciding factor to check, which is the camera system. And here for the price tag this phone is selling, well, if you're a selfie-centric person, you will be disappointed. And that's because this single 32-megapixel hole-punch selfie camera output looks overprocessed and dull in almost all lighting scenarios. I'm not sure whether it's because of the sensor being mediocre or it's just because of the processing being too bad. Well, it doesn't matter because here the outcome is not useful. And same happens with the videos that are captured with this front camera. Max video resolution supported is 4K at 30 FPS, and here the same dullness effect is there in videos too, and also the stabilization is just fine. So if you're a person who relies a lot on front camera, you probably won't be happy with what you're getting from the F62. But on the other hand, if you're a person whose main focus is with the back camera, well then this phone does a great to good job. The main camera setup is the same found in the Galaxy M51 and the Galaxy A71, where the main sensor is a 64 megapixel one, then there is a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and you also get two 5 megapixel cameras. And here the output from the main camera is great if there is sufficient light. Shots looks very sharp and the colors are a bit punchy, and the dynamic range is good too. There isn't any focusing issue, and overall everything looks neat and a bit saturated, which adds a punch to the photos. Now the photos quality does drop as the light tends to get dull. There is a bit of softness, but still they are usable if there is moderate light available. But then while switching to a very low lit situation, the output becomes average. That's about the main camera, and now while focusing the ultra wide angle camera, it's only usable in a perfect lit environment. In such a scenario, shots looks fine for an ultra wide angle camera, and about the macro camera, I didn't like it much, and I feel it's better to use the main camera and zoom the photo instead of using the macro camera. And same is applicable to the depth sensor too. And when we move to the video recording side, well surprisingly it's good. Usually phones in this range does disappoint with video recording, but here the story is different. It's not perfect, but still the video output is pretty crisp and focusing is fast, and also stabilization is done in a neat manner. Here the only thing I wish for in the video recording side is the support for 1080p recording at 60 fps. So overall from the camera side, the back camera setup is done well, and that's it. Then about the Bluetooth version, well it's Bluetooth 5, and about the Wi-Fi version, it's dual band Wi-Fi, and here you also get NFC and all the sensors, which is good. But then there isn't any form of IP rating available, and at the time of testing the phone, well there isn't support for carrier aggregation. Now this might change because Exynos 9825 does have support for carrier aggregation, but then with network speeds, it was good and there wasn't any dropped calls happening, and by the way the earpiece is adequately loud for calls. So I guess that's everything about the Galaxy F62 after 3 months of use. And after using this phone, what I felt is that this is a good gaming type phone from Samsung in this price range. Its massive battery and good performance along with a huge perfect quality display all does make the F62 a neat phone for gaming purpose. And I feel that you should be looking in buying the F62 if your need is primarily for this purpose. Else the Galaxy A52 is a much better choice. But then at times, this phone's pricing does drop drastically, and if you find a F62 unit for such a price, well then there isn't any need to hesitate in getting one if you're not worried much about the speaker issue of the phone, its junky nature, and also the selfie camera flaws. That's up for this video guys, hope you liked it. If so, like is much appreciated, and a sub to the channel will be awesome. See you again in the next one. Till then, bye.